Hi, and welcome to Introduction to Linguistics, Week 3. So this week we start off with our topic of semantics, and eventually we move on to talking about the sounds of the English language. But before we even dive into the beginning of our semantics components, I have to set a reminder that tomorrow is your first exam, and in your first exam, we will be touching very briefly on some of the topics that we've had the chance to discuss last week and the week prior to that. So for instance, our first week of class, we spoke about what does it mean to know a language, right? And we spoke about the different components of a language. So when you know a language, you know the sound system, you know the sounds of that language, which sounds belong to my language, which sounds don't belong to my language, you know the sound system, you know how to put sounds together and combine them into words, meaningful words, and you know which words are meaningful versus which ones aren't, which words are possible in your language versus which ones aren't, and you know about how to put words together into meaningful utterances or sentences, and as well the study of semantics, which is the study of the meaning in sentences and the meaning in words. And we also know higher level knowledge of culturally specific meaning and language that is appropriate according to situation, social situation or context, and this is pragmatic knowledge. And we also know how to communicate in the abstract. We know how to be linguistically creative and produce novel sentences that have never been produced before. We have knowledge of syntax, which gives us the rules of our own language and how basically we can build up on those universal rules or those rules. And we also spoke about how our human language is different from animal communication, and we said the reasons why, because a major property of human language is discreteness, or discreteness is the possibility of knowing meaningful units and being able to combine them in novel ways that are grammatically correct and meaningful. And we also spoke about, yeah, so this ties into the idea of linguistic creativity, which is ultimately what differentiates human communication from animal communication. And a lot of last week, we discussed morphology, the study of morphology, or the building blocks of words. And we spoke about the 8 different inflectional morphemes in modern English versus the derivational morphemes that we could adopt to or add to a word that could cause a change in meaning and could cause a change in grammatical category, but not always. And we also spoke about how to model the meaning of words into trees, or how to model the morphological components of words into trees. And we also spoke about how to detect morphemes in words of foreign languages. So how would we interpret or write rules for a set of words that we've never seen before? So how would we say that this morpheme is recurrent, so this morpheme means this meaning, right? So we spoke about how we would go about doing morphological analysis, and we also spoke about words and the sort of knowledge that humans have about words and non-words and potential words. And finally, we ended up talking about syntax and how we can model our knowledge of sentences by using syntax trees. And we spoke about the phrase structure rule and how the phrase structure rule is influenced by our knowledge of sentences being composed of subjects and predicates. So based on that knowledge, we make our phrase structure rules. And we also spoke about how it's smart to start from the bottom up, right? And how it's important that whenever we make a tree diagram, we know the 8 different parts of speech or the components of syntax. So it's a lot of knowledge, but it's quite basic, and I hope that you won't encounter any difficulties in this exam. You have access to your chapters. So your chapters talk about linguistic knowledge. What does it mean to know a language? It's all here. So some of the things that I noticed from your assignments were that you weren't reading. Sorry, you weren't reading or you weren't watching the videos. So if you didn't watch the videos, I didn't give you the full points for your answer. Some of you got creative and you thought that you can answer that question based on your previous knowledge of what you thought a language, knowing a language entails. You thought wrong, because when I grade you, I want to know your ability to engage with what has been discussed in class and that you've been listening and that you're fully aware of the components of this class. So please don't ever answer that question with what you think you know about a language without reading the material and watching the videos. This is why I make the videos in the first place. So don't come crying if you get the mark that you don't want. Okay, so here basically lies the answer of what does it mean to know a language. Linguistic knowledge, knowledge of the sound system, knowledge of words, knowledge of the arbitrary, and we spoke about arbitrariness. What does arbitrariness mean? It means that it's basically random. The relationship between form or symbol, the alphabet, and meaning, right? And we spoke of, here are some examples as to why language is arbitrary. So if I ask you one of these questions of in relation to spelling conventions and why they're arbitrary, please read this bit and watch the video as well, our first video. We spoke about sound symbolism and onomatopoeic words. We spoke about linguistic creativity. We spoke about sentences and non-sentences. We spoke about linguistic performance, so knowledge of performance and how it differs to linguistic competence. We spoke about different grammar, so that's an important question as well. What is descriptive grammar? Give me an example. What is prescriptive grammar? Give me an example. And we also spoke about teaching grammars and how they are related to the notion of prescriptive grammar. So if there's any like open-ended questions about this or vocabulary word items, you know what teaching grammars is. We also spoke about universal grammar, and a lot of you did mostly well in this question, but if you feel like you could improve, reread that section or watch our video or SoundCloud. We spoke about the development of grammar in a child, and then we kind of stopped here. We didn't go forth about this part we didn't discuss. So that was it for our chapter 1. Let's go to the chapter 2. So then we spoke about morphology. This chapter we covered pretty thoroughly. So we spoke about the different kind of words. You can get content words or function words in the English dictionary. And we also spoke about how content words are called open class and function words are considered closed. And we said why. So be familiar with this. We spoke about morphemes as the minimal units of meaning in language and how to sort of parse a word as such. We spoke about the study of morphology and how to deconstruct words into 1, 2, 3, or more than 4 morphemes. We spoke about the discreteness property. What is a monomorphemic word? We spoke about how sometimes you can get the same symbol, but the same symbol doesn't mean the same thing in a particular word, or how you can have different symbols that could mean the same thing or have the same effect on a word. We spoke about bound and free morphemes, prefixes and suffixes, infixes, circumfixes, roots and stems. What is a root versus a stem? Bound roots, rules of word formation. And remember, these are examples of derivational morphology, all of these examples. And remember how sometimes derivational affixes don't change grammatical class. So you can just get an adjective change to another kind of adjective, verb to another kind of verb, noun to another kind of noun. And then we spoke about inflectional morphology and how it's more grammatical. And these are the 8 different inflectional morphemes. And then how to basically, this is the knowledge that we discussed. So it's a good summary. how to do these trees. You would want to do these trees, or how to write a rule that represents this tree. So what's the first morpheme that I add to my word in that is still grammatical? So system, you don't add un first, you add atic first. So systematic, and that's a grammatical word. And then to systematic, then you add unsystematic. If it helps and you don't know or you're not sure, you can also consult a dictionary online. We spoke about how to make these tree diagrams. And then I think we spoke about suppletive words, so exceptions, back formations. We spoke about back formations, compounds, very superficially. And that was it. We didn't go into the sign bit, unfortunately. And we spoke about morphological analysis, how to conduct morphological analysis and take out the root morpheme or interpret something as bound morpheme. Then we did some exercises. Then we moved on to chapter 3. We spoke about how you have this ability to add more components to a sentence, and that sort of knowledge of adding or elongating a sentence and still having it be grammatical is knowledge that is stored in our brain. And we know which words are not permissible versus which sentences are permissible, right? And we spoke about the study of syntax, syntactic rules, the word order in the English language, Alice in Wonderland examples, to be comfortable with that, sentence structure, what does it stand for, the leaves, the roots, constituents tree diagram. We spoke about what is a constituent, how you can have subunits or sub-constituents. We spoke about what a node is. We spoke about different types of constituency tests. We spoke about 3 different kinds. We spoke about structural ambiguity, syntactic categories, and we also spoke about lexical and functional categories. So here are some phrasal categories, lexical categories, phrase structure trees, how to do them, how to make phrase structure rules. And then we kind of, we didn't go much after this bit. We didn't get onto building phrase structure trees, although I sort of already kind of discussed how to make one. If you want to know more about it, I can give a complimentary video of this section. But basically, we went up to here, to page 91. So then that's the material for your exam. And in my next video, I will be talking about semantics. If you have any questions in your journey of to studying, let me know.